Our senior business correspondent, Peter Armstrong, is one of the reporters leading our coverage as part of this special series, In Our Backyard. Canadians are concerned. One of the reasons might be because climate change carries a very hefty price tag. And Peter, looking at, as always, the money of all of this, what are the financial implications, Peter?
Well, they're both enormous now, and they're growing. And one of the things that Sean Benjamin and our team tried to do was really to zero in on what's happening today. Because there's a lot of projections of what's to come, and if we do this, then that. If we don't do this, then that. What we wanted to look at is right now, today, what's all this costing? The most remarkable figure I found was that between 1983 and 2008, insurance companies, they paid about $400 million a year out in all kinds of insurance claims. Now, though, due to so many climate-related disasters, that bill's gone up to $1.8 billion a year. So that gives you a staggering figure. And it comes back to a thing I remember I might have been talking to you about this actually, with driverless cars. And I was wondering, when are these driverless cars actually going to happen? And an analyst I really like said, nothing happens until the insurance companies show up. And on climate change, man, the insurance companies have showed up. We spoke to the CEO of Intact Insurance. They've made it a company priority to get way out in front of this for that very reason. That, yeah, there's all kinds of human problems, there's all kinds of societal problems, but at the end of the day, they're a company, a publicly traded company. This is going to affect their bottom line. It's an existential threat that's going to cost billions of dollars, so they're trying to get out in front of it. And the numbers that we see are just staggering. They're expecting that over the next little while, the country is going to get 20% drier in the west, 20% wetter in the east. So think about how that sort of plays out. Crop problems. Right now, we pulled up a map from the Canadian Drought Monitor. Vast tracts of the prairies are abnormally dry. And we're looking at that map now. All that yellow is deemed abnormally dry. When you get that dry soil, plus you get a lot of those more intense spring intense rains, you're seeing soil begin to erode. The United States Department of Agriculture has put out a report showing that they're actually seeing crop yields begin to fall. And then you get into, on the east, where we've got so many more, the floods of the century and storms of the century that are coming every 3 or 4 years. You think about bridges, you think about wastewater systems, you think about water systems. Those are going to cost billions of dollars to get up to grade right now. Not for what it's going to be like 10, 15 years from now. And there's no one agency or one sort of body that's responsible for all of that. And climate change knows no borders. So it's municipalities, it's, provincial governments, federal governments, all of them are going to be on the hook for big, big bucks.
Okay. We have some tape about that, talking about the no one agency responsible.
Right.
Is that
so
right?
This is a woman we met from the Toronto Region Conservation Authority, talking about how do you find a solution to a problem that knows no boundaries when so many of our responses are tied to very specific boundaries? Let's take a listen.
The big thing here is the distributed nature of the risk. And the real issue that we struggle with in Greater Toronto area is that the risk is not localized to one place.
The risk is not localized. This is striking in that, as you said, these are right now. These are not projections down the line. Some of your reporting, you talked about insurance. It's been quite stark to find that we're going to look at places that are not insurable in the very near future, if not right now.
Going forward, for sure. We went and found a guy who's both an activist and a sort of victim of these floods, who bought a house in the 70s. He looked at the floodplain maps. He sort of knew this might be a problem. He wasn't anywhere near a floodplain. He lives up near Black Creek in North Toronto. It's a cement culvert that runs, this much water. He didn't think this was ever going to be a problem. Hurricanes, which one was the one back in the 50s? The massive hurricane
Hazel?
that swept. Hurricane Hazel hit there. Nobody in his neighborhood got flooded. It was like, this will be just fine. But now, over the last 10, 12 years, there's been 4 floods in his neighborhood because those storms have changed. They're more intense. They're more, they linger longer. Remember that storm that just came in over Toronto and just hovered there for like 2 hours? You have that. You have really bad old infrastructure decisions coming home to roost. And simply, we're building too much stuff. And then you get into the wastewater system and the water system, where the pipes that are trying to pipe that water out are too small. So of course it all backs up. And this guy had water up to his neck. It was crazy. And his concern is he's not going to be able to he's got like an incredibly expensive coverage plan right now. And he's like, that's the best I can get. And if we get one more, they're going to cancel me altogether. And again, we spoke to the CEO of Intact about that. And he says, yeah, we're going to get new floodplain maps released in the new year from the federal government. That's going to open a lot of people's eyes to the fact that they are at way more risks than we assumed. Here's some of the pictures of the dramatic flooding we've seen over the years. He says we're going to look at these new maps coming out and say that this changes everything. And the notion that people will be simply uninsurable, yeah, he says that's absolutely true.
Ottawa now, part of our series, also you'll see online, Ottawa looking at high-risk kinds of flood policies and bringing in subsidies to deal with situations that you have described from the man you were speaking to. What do you do with this information if you're listening to this? I mean, it's a
little
worrisome.
Gloomy, isn't it?
It is.
Listen, that's a big part of what this whole series is all about. And it was my job to try to set it up.
Okay.
And then we've got a bunch of other reporters coming in with some of the solutions. Jacqueline Hansen has a great piece on energy solutions. She's looking at small modular reactors in the nuclear field. Connie Watson has some amazing stories. We're looking at even just little things like what kind of construction tools can we use? A specific screw that might fix things, that might make things a little bit better. And when you look at the totality of the solutions that we're going to be exploring over the next week and beyond. I mean, this is a climate change series, but it's a story that we as a news organization are really going to be looking at more intensely going forward. And just as an ongoing thing, I think we're going to start trying to look at the specifics of what homeowners can do, what local governments can do, what provincial and federal governments can do, what companies can do to try to not just hedge against their risk, but try to get out in front of some of these things.
Peter, thanks. Always great to have you in this morning. Senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong.